Well, glory be and mercy me, we've done it yet again. Here we are, daily walk around the graveyard. Today we are talking about the continuing cleanse from the internet and from all media of socialist and communist channels. The most recent victim in the wake of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, the subreddit Jen Zedong. I know for you guys, it might seem pretty small scale, but from my perspective and my perception, this was a subreddit that had about between 40 to 50,000 subscribers on it. They have since quarantined it, so you can't actually see how many subscribers are on it. And it was what can only be described as a bastion for dissenting thought. Lots of funny memes, lots of funny things going on, but most importantly, lots of information. Many times I had gone into that subreddit asking some fairly straightforward and basic questions and receiving some extremely excellent resources, extremely well researched, extremely well sourced, which makes it extremely dangerous. Of course, Reddit is using the example or the excuse of misinformation, but we all know that this is nonsense. That a place like Jen Zedong, a place like our Russia, right? Here's another place that they quarantined, should tell you where the priorities are. Literally, the subreddit dedicated to discussing Russia gets quarantined during this period of time. And this is all part of a larger trend that people on the left, the actual leftists, not the pseudo-left that seems to pretend like they're progressive and care about these issues, but the actual leftists have been saying all along that this is going to lead to a much wider crackdown. This is going to lead to a form of Neo-McCarthyism. And that has been what we have been saying since they removed Alex Jones from all of the platforms. They systematically, simultaneously swept him away and said, oh, we have to get rid of him because he's so outrageous, he's too far. And then, of course, the pseudo-left goes along with this while the real leftists say, you know they're going to do that to us, right? And down the garden path we walk. The Chapo Trap House subreddit and the Real Donald subreddit get swept away with the same excuse, right? Spreading misinformation, right? It's in violation of our copyright laws and all of our user laws or whatever bullshit excuse they're using. And steadily, it's getting wider. It's getting wider and it's getting worse. And now it's to the point where if you even begin talking about the Ukrainian war in anything but the explicit narrative that is laid down by the capitalist death cult, you are swept away. I've been banned off most subreddits simply for pointing out that we have been funding neo-Nazis there. And now we are seeing Reddit-wide cleanses. And this is going to be true on places like Facebook. This is going to be true on all of these social media platforms. Facebook recently, of course, making it acceptable to utter death threats against Russians really shows you where the priorities of our society are going, where those who are calling for peace are removed and those who are calling for war are platformed. This speaks to a wider trend that is happening in our society, one that is extraordinarily dangerous and is going to have profound negative effects for decades to come. We need to allow dissenting voices in the conversation. It is actually a necessity. It is unimportant that you disagree with them. It is in fact unimportant if you think they are reprehensible. That is beyond the point. The point is that we need to allow these dissenting voices to actually be aired and to actually be listened to and to actually be taken seriously. Because if you remove dissenting voices from the conversation, then the people who are in power and in control will always lead you into disaster, which is exactly what is happening. Just think about every panel show you've ever watched in the last 10 years here in North America. What do you always end up with? You always end up with some neo-fascist on the far right who gets platformed and everybody listens to as if he's a serious person. And then to the left of him is a far-right conservative, maybe an MP or something, and then a liberal. And then I find myself asking, where's the socialist? Where's the communist? Where's the person to the left even of center in the conversation? And they don't exist. They're not part of the conversation. We've been removed from the conversation, you see. And it's happening systematically, and it's happening on purpose. It is being done by policy. And what this means is that when we are confronted with issues in our society, when we are confronted with problems, the people who are voicing the most reasonable solutions, or at least a solution that isn't tied up into those who are causing the problems, simply don't get listened to, simply don't get heard. Like, very simple, clear examples, right? Should we be trusting the same institutions that led us into a false war in Iraq? Should we simply be listening to them and taking them seriously as the arbiters of truth, right? And one of the things that people say, of course, is, well, John, these institutions are privately owned, right? Freedom of speech only applies to the government, right? That it's not the government that's coming down. Yes, well, those free speech laws were written when the government was the only institution that could afford a media apparatus in the first place. And that news media, such that it existed, was small local papers. They didn't have in mind this idea that there was going to be a large-scale monopolistic corporation that had come in and taken over all of the media, as well as the government apparatus. This argument of, well, it's a private company, they can do what they want, dies once you realize that they've bought the government as well, right? And that simple statement, the simple fact of the situation, is going to soon be enough to have someone be deplatformed for misinformation, even though it is obviously the case, even though it is obviously the truth. This, of course, takes on a personal note for me, right? How long until I am removed? How long until this channel is removed? How much longer until other dissenters, more established dissenters than me, are swept away? How much longer do we have until the only thing that you will be able to hear on these media outlets are the bloodthirsty cries for war and the spitting at the homeless and the poor and blaming them for the poverty the society is inflicting upon them? How much longer until that just becomes what is acceptable, right? That's what's considered information in this society. How much longer do we have to actually raise our voices and be heard on any of these platforms before the only outlet that will be left to us will be the streets? And this, in my view, is the inevitable outcome of all of this for our society, and why I continuously am pushing us in this direction and praying to whatever forces are listening that the populace wakes up and realizes that this is what must be done. We must surround the halls of power. More and more people, dissenting voices, even reasonable questions are getting people shoved out, that we are no longer able to participate, that we are no longer able to be listened to, that we are victims to the system of extraction and abandonment. We are the canaries in the coal mine, and the populace seems perfectly fine with it. The populace seems happy about it, frankly, that well, we'll just get rid of those dingy voices and then our society will improve. And that's simply not how it's going to work. That the energy that bubbles under the society as the vast majority of the populace are abandoned to the capitalist death cult will not go down silently. And we can choose to actually have conversations about it in the public sector and in the public air and actually then vote along those lines. Or we can wait until the halls of power are surrounded and then wonder what's going on. It's up to us, really. It's up to us. If you've made it to this point, guys, like, share, subscribe. We have to support leftist voices, right? We're the ones calling for peace. We're the ones calling for the reversal of this systematic policy of abandonment that is inflicting the populace. 60% of people are saying they're having trouble paying their bills. That's not going to get better. And as they remove people off of these platforms who are saying things like that, it's going to get worse, it's going to accelerate. And the only way it's going to improve is if we finally start to surround the halls of power and demand that it end. Always remember, guys, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the vain hope that you'll not realize it and just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt, rebel, repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.